Alright, Ball. Namaste. And we have reached Krishna book reading number 20. That's our video for today. And I'm going to start off by hearing and chanting Krishna's names with you. And there's a wonderful prayer by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who wrote 8 prayers. He wrote 8 prayers, and in one of the prayers, the first one says, "All glories to the hearing and chanting of Krishna's names, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together." And what is that dust? The dust is the enviousness of Krishna that we have, that has covered over us in the form of material energy, so that we do not see our true nature, we do not see our relationship with Krishna. And because of this enviousness and this desire to lord and control the material energy, we have turned our back away from Krishna. So we do not see him. But by the grace of the hearing and chanting of Krishna's names, the dust is cleared off and we can see the dazzling. It's referred to in the Bhagavad Gita as the spirit soul, the Jivatma, is dazzling. We can see the spirit soul, we can see ourselves as spiritual entities, children of God, and we can understand our relationship with not only with each other, but with the Supreme Person. So, thank you for joining me today. Let me offer my respects to you, and let me offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual teacher, Jagat Guru Siddhaswarapananda Srila Prabhupada, and respects and obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And let's chant. So we are continuing, I believe we're in chapter 7, the salvation of Trinivarta. We had read before, in the beginning of the chapter, before the actual, we haven't got to Trinivarta yet, but actually we were reading about how baby Krishna, when he was in his first year and he was small, and Mother Yashoda we're going to celebrate his first birthday. And so they were really busy getting things ready. And in the process of getting ready, Mother Yashoda put baby Krishna down on the ground. And baby Krishna didn't like that. Krishna didn't really like that. He wanted to be fed. He was hungry. He was getting fed. He was like enjoying getting fed by Mother Yashoda. And so he was put under a cart. And he kicked his leg out. And the cart collapsed. And of course, everybody came running and they found this, baby Krishna had not been hurt, but this cart had fallen over. It gotten broken apart, the axle from the wheel. And they were like, how is this possible? How could this happen? They were all the coward men were trying to figure out what was going on. And the kids who saw it, they were like, no, Krishna kicked his leg out and the cart separated, and they're like, yeah, right, okay, yeah, you're just kids, you don't know what you're talking about. But, anyway, Mother Yashoda had called on the Brahmanas to chant Vedic mantras to counteract any evil spirits. This is the wonderful influence of Yoga Maya, the spiritual energy of Krishna, the internal energy of love for Krishna, that allows the living entities to be put into delusion, the devotees who want to actually have a relationship with Krishna, an intimate relationship, either in friendship, as the coward boys did, or in paternalship, like mother, father, like Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, and the gopis, which we'll get into the stories later, as a conjugal loving relationship. So the awe and reverence that is often experienced in many kinds of world religions, and also Vedic religion too as well, oftentimes, is not particularly attractive to Krishna. It's sort of like, big brass bands or whatever, the big pomp and circumstance, pompous, situation with lots of frilly things and ornaments, and Krishna just doesn't like that. He just likes the intimate. He likes being chastised by his mom, or by his, told by his friends, oh, let's wrestle, or so many wonderful things, or say, oh, well, Krishna, he's small, be careful on him. It's like, he enjoys that. God really enjoys that. See, God enjoys that. But people can't quite wrap their mind around that, thinking that God would be like, how could God be like that? It's because people end up tending to be the judge of God, because I can't understand that. I can't wrap my brain around it. Therefore, it can't be true. And unfortunately, many religious people, so-called religious people, fall into this trap. We understand that atheists fall into this trap already by thinking that they know better, because they have a little bit of knowledge, and so they're puffed up, and they think that there is no God, or God is some kind of fairy tale or whatever, and therefore they just think they know it. So I'm going to continue on here. As the Brahmanas chanted the Vedic hymns, I'll start my prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And this is a prayer in the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first verse. It offers respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we say that before we read the Srimad Bhagavatam. As the Brahmanas chanted the Vedic hymns and performed the ritualistic ceremonies for the second time, Nanda Maharaj again gave huge quantities of grains and many cows to them. All the cows which were given in charity were covered with nice and gold embroidered garments, and their horns were bedecked with golden rings. Their hooves were covered with silver plate, and they wore garlands of flowers. He gave so many cows just for the welfare of his wonderful child, and the Brahmanas in return bestowed their heartfelt blessing. And the blessings offered by the able Brahmanas were never to be baffled. One day, shortly after this ceremony, when Mother Yashoda was patting her baby on her lap, the baby felt too heavy. Krishna is the most heavy because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can be the most heavy or the most light, the smallest and the greatest, the oldest and yet the youngest. And being unable to carry him, she unwillingly placed him on the ground. After a while, she became engaged in household affairs. At that time, one of the servants of Kamsa, known as Trinivarta, as instructed by Kamsa, appeared there in the shape of a whirlwind. Whirlwind is like tornado, right? He picked the child up on his shoulders, raised a great dust storm all over Vrindavan. So the demons, these Rakshasas, they not only like Putana have the capability of changing their shape like this, they also have powers, mystic powers. They can create, make themselves into a hurricane like this, or they can change their shapes or do so many things. Because of this, everyone's eyes became covered within a few moments, and the whole area of Vrindavan became densely dark so that no one could see himself or anyone else. During this great catastrophe, Mother Yashoda could not see her baby, who was taken away by the whirlwind, and she began to cry very piteously. She fell down on the ground exactly like a cow who had just lost her calf. When Mother Yashoda was so piteously crying, all the coward women immediately came and began to look for the baby, but they were disappointed and could not find him. The Trinivarta demon, who took baby Krishna on his shoulder, went high in the sky, but the baby assumed such a weight that suddenly he could not go any further. He had to stop his whirlwind activity. So these demons are extremely powerful. They're powerful demons, sometimes even so powerful that they can challenge the demigods, but they are minuscule in comparison to Krishna's powers. Baby Krishna made himself heavy and began to weigh down the demon. The Lord caught hold of his neck. Trinivarta felt the baby to be as heavy as a big mountain, and he tried to get out of his clutches, but was unable to do so, and his eyes popped out from their sockets. Crying very fiercely, he fell down to the ground of Vrindavan and died. The demon fell exactly like Tripurashura, who was pierced by the arrow of Lord Shiva. He hit the stone ground, and his limbs were smashed. His body became visible to all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. When the gopis saw the demon killed and the child Krishna very happily playing on his body, they immediately picked Krishna up with great affection. The coward men and women became very happy to get back their beloved child Krishna, and at that time they began to talk about how wonderful it was that the demon took away the child to devour him, but could not do so. Instead, he fell down dead. Some of them supported this situation. This is proper because those who are too sinful die from their sinful reactions, and child Krishna is pious. Therefore, he is saved from all kinds of fearful situations. And we too must have performed great sacrifices in our previous lives, worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, giving great wealth and charity, and acting philanthropically for the general welfare of men. Because of such pious activities, the child is saved from all danger. So it's actually said in the Vedas that a person who engages in pious activities, they will eventually not only incur good karma, they will also lay the groundwork to engage in spiritual activity in the future, such as being in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or becoming a devotee. It may take a while, so that's sort of an indirect route it's better to hear and chant Krishna's names and to have the effects more quickly. But there are systems that were set up in the Vedas. Basically, everything in the Vedas was set up in a way to help people elevate their consciousness to come closer to Krishna. The gopis assembled there spoke among themselves what sort of austerities and penances we must have undergone in our previous lives. We must have worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, offered different kinds of sacrifices, made charities, and performed many welfare activities for the public, such as growing banyan trees and excavating wells. As a result of these pious activities, we have got back our child, even though he was supposed to be dead. Now he has come back to enliven his relatives. After observing such wonderful happenings, Nanda Maharaj began to think of the words of Vasudeva again and again. After this incident, when Yashoda was nursing her child and patting him with great affection, there streamed a profuse supply of milk from her breast, and when she opened the mouth of the child with her fingers, she suddenly saw the universal manifestation within his mouth. She saw within the mouth of Krishna the whole sky, including the luminaries, stars in all directions, the sun, moon, fire, air, seas, islands, mountains, rivers, forests, and all other movable and immovable entities. She's basically seeing everything, of all the universal forms in the mouth of baby Krishna. Upon seeing this, Mother Yashoda's heart began to throb, and she murmured within herself, "How wonderful this is!" She could not express anything, but simply closed her eyes. She was absorbed in wonderful thoughts. Krishna, showing his universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even when lying down on the lap of his mother, proves that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether he is manifest as a child on the lap of his mother or as a charioteer on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The concoction of the impersonalist that one can become God by meditation or by some artificial material activities is herewith declared false. God is always God in any condition or status, and the living entities are always the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. They can never be equal to the inconceivable supernatural power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we've touched upon this idea of the impersonalist Vedic thought. It was from a yogic thought that God somehow or another decided he wanted to enjoy, so he split himself up and came under the material nature and then was trapped thinking he was somebody else but not God. And then that you would meditate upon, do meditations or whatever on forms of God, and you would merge into those forms, into the impersonal Brahmajyoti, or the void as Buddhists tend to think of it, and become one, become God again. But there's problems, all kinds of problems, like we've discussed before, with this idea that God would split himself up and become under material nature to enjoy, but because he's a supreme enjoyer, he doesn't need to come into the material world under material nature to enjoy himself. He comes into the material world, but he's still situated as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He never loses his memory. He never comes under the form of material nature. That would make material nature stronger than God. It would make his inferior energy stronger than him. So this idea of impersonal or Mayavadi philosophy is wrong and has so many flaws in it. But unfortunately, so many people are caught up in it because people tend to like the idea of thinking they're God, because that, after all, that's why we're all here. We all tend to think we're God. We think, we may not say I'm God, but we act in the way that we think we're the judge. We think that we know better. We do everything in the sense of what's mine, including, we say things like my family, my daughter, my dog, my job. It's all about me. And we all do that. whether we're in a form of the human form or a dog form or a microbe form, we're all trying to enjoy as the supreme enjoyer, and we're completely bewildered by these forms that we come under. So the practice of sadhana bhakti or bhakti yoga, listening to Krishna Katha, like I was saying, the chanting of Krishna's names helps clean the dust of this illusion that we are our body, we are our mind, and we are the supreme controller. But we learn that we are indeed a spiritual entity. We are part and parcel of God, the same spiritual energy in quality but not quantity. We are the supreme energy. We are the spiritual energy, but we are dominated. We're dominated just like a spark is at home in a fire. When it's put outside of the fire, it may go out. But when it's put back in the fire, it'll light up again. Not because it's the fire, but it has the same nature as the fire. So we are dominated. We are spiritual and Ham Brahmasmi. We are spiritual in essence, and we are also dominated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always God, as I said. That is his position eternally, just as our position eternally is as his servant, loving servant. And that is, of course, the final function of the living entity, is to engage in loving service. That is a natural position, it's a loving position, and it's a joyful position. We won't ever find that. We will be searching for that in the material world, for that relationship again, but we will never find it. We never have found it. Instead, we find so much misery, as is seen by the material world and everything, and the varieties of different kinds of enjoyments that people try to engage in, but never find satisfaction or happiness. No, the actual happiness and satisfaction is engaging in a loving relationship with God and reinstating that. So it's not like we're going somewhere, like this is a goal that we're going to. We're actually returning back to this idea of that is eternally our natural function. And so I will just finish the end of this chapter. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 7th chapter of Krishna's Salvation of Trinivarta. I like to finish it that way. So we are going to end it there, and we're going to continue with the next video is about the vision of the universal form. So it seems as though Mother Yashoda has shown twice the form in the of the universal form of within Krishna's mouth, because that will be our next chapter, is the vision of the universal form. So what we're going to do is we're going to engage some more in some kirtana, and we will continue on the next story. Excuse me. Okay, that's all for tonight. So stay tuned for the next chapter of the wonderful Krishna book. And if you have not liked or subscribed to my channel, please do. And if you've just started in on this video, I would suggest go back in my YouTube channel. We have 20 videos starting from the very beginning. So I would go back and listen from the beginning to hear the whole situation. And if you have anybody you know who would like to hear from these Christian stories, have them come to my channel, subscribe, and we'll stay tuned for the next one. Okay. Thank you very much. Aloha. Namaste.